Welcome to Contemporary Black Voices, where we take on the most pressing issues confronting Black America. I am the writer Fred, and here with me in the studio today are Dr. Sharon Michael Chadwell, businessman Chris Dawkins, and New York Times bestselling author Caleb Alexander. June 1 of this year marked the 102nd commemoration of the attack and invasion by a racist white mob in Tulsa, Oklahoma, on what was known as Negro Wall Street, changed from Negro to Black in 1991. This event was such a devastating attack on humanity that it was watched from history, known as a conspiracy of silence, until 1992, when Oklahoma State Legislator Don Ross forced the state government to appoint a commission to examine the history of this event. Since that time, most of the emphasis has been on the attack and is routinely referred to as the massacre. For the past 14 years, I have researched the entirety of the history of Black Wall Street and what really led to what happened on May 30, 1921, May 31, 1921, and finally June 1, 1921. I have chronicled my research and findings in the historical novel Fires of Greenwood, Tulsa Riot of 1921, and today I regret using that name, and I can explain why. And I've done a recent screenplay, Heroes of Black Wall Street. Our discussion today will deviate from other researchers on the issue, but it is from a Black perspective, while all others have been from white historians. And as we so well know, there has historically always been a distinct difference in the interpretation of this country's history based on the race of the person writing his or her findings. The growth of the most fantastic independent Black community in Tulsa, Oklahoma from 1906 to 1921 and its destruction are a part of that difference. So with no further delay, let's get started.
All right. And so, Professor, I do want to thank you for sharing your knowledge and years of research on this subject with us. And so it is a very, very important subject, a very intriguing subject. And so we certainly want to thank you for sharing all of that knowledge and wisdom and research with us today. So thank you very much.
It was my total enjoyment doing all the research. So thank you for the thank you. Okay.
And so I guess, our first question for you today is, I know you mentioned your research on the subject and how the person who's doing the research,
Right.
It really matters. It really matters in this country. And so I want you to tell us a little bit about how your research differs from other researchers on the subject.
It's from a Black perspective. That's the major difference. It's from a Black man doing the research as opposed to white historians. Now, I have no problems with them doing the research. It's how you interpret the research and you write about it.
Right.
And I can tell you that the white historians, and I've read everything, believe me, I've read everything out there on this subject. The novels, everything. The commission report that came out, I think in 1992, I read that whole report, and I had the privilege of interviewing Miss Gates, who was one of the commissioners, of putting that report together. So here's the difference. Sarah Page and Dick Rowland had a confrontation in the elevator in the Drexel building. So what was that confrontation all about? So white historians have written, well, he went to get the elevator and he stumbled into her. Well, this guy was a smooth dancer, man. All the women at the club wanted to dance with Dick Rowland. He was a football player. What's the chances he's going to stumble into her? You know?
Right.
So I started to research that. I mentioned I interviewed Miss Gates. Miss Gates interviewed Bernice Dunn, who was 19 in 1921. And she'll tell you that the thing she regrets most is she was supposed to go to her prom and dance with her boyfriend the night of June 1st. And they had to call off the prom. And so that's why Miss Gates was interviewing her. But then Miss Gates asked her, look, there's a lot of different interpretations of what happened in that elevator. And so she said, what happened? But these Dunn said they're lovers. And everybody in the black area knew they were lovers. And it was probably nothing more than a lover's quarrel.
Wow.
Nobody has written that but me. But me. Now, that was number one. Number two, why did I want to write it that way? Two, after they have the confrontation, Sarah Page runs out of the elevator and hollers, help, help, help. A white salesman in Reddenberg men's store runs out, tries to grab Dick Rowland. He does the dock, gets around him, and goes home. So the next day, the newspaper has a headline, Negro boy accosts white girl. In 1921, that was like, rape.
Oh, yeah.
Now, in the editorial page, Lloyd Jones, who had the newspaper, he wrote, there will be a lynching. You can't find that anywhere. His kids and grandkids got rid of that. You can't find that anywhere. How do we know it existed? Because some of the blacks still had that newspaper. Now, here's what's really important. Those brothers went over to World War I and kicked butt. I mean, the 92nd was the first division to go across the Rhine into Germany. Very few people know that. And Woodrow Wilson had told Du Bois, back off of complaining about segregation, go fight for your country, and we'll make sure you get democracy when you come back. Well, that didn't happen, but those brothers came back angry, and they weren't going to take no mess. And that's true. I give you that background because it's true about Tulsa. O.B. Mann, on Mann grocery store, was one of those fighters. He came back to Tulsa and told those white folks, you will not lynch anyone while we veterans are here. Now, they get that newspaper, and it says there's going to be a lynching today. And that's when the whole thing gets going. But let's get back to Sarah Page. Okay, they go to Sarah Page and said, look, we got him arrested. We want you to testify against him. She said, no, I won't do that. I'm saying, oh, well, this is interesting. So then Bernice Dunn tells Miss Gates, first of all, they whisked Dick Rowland off to Kansas City, get him out of Tulsa. Sarah Page returns to Kansas City. So Dick Rowland writes a letter to his godmother and says, Sarah Page is here living with me. Now that's all the proof I needed.
Wow.
No one else would do that.
Wow.
No one else would do that.
This is a fascinating story, and I just want to say thank you to you as well, because I would not look at this story in the very same eyes that I look at it unless I had met you. And one of those things have to deal with, you have talked about this, and I'd like you to talk more about it, about how we as a Black community have still continued to call this a massacre versus now you have changed. And I think you can also, I think that's what you were alluding to with your book,
Right.
As to why you really didn't like the title of your book now afterwards and how you would change it. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yes, I can. And it goes back to, I had a website, and one of the places I did was Evolution of a Writer. And I was thinking to everybody else the negative side of what happened. And then I thought about young Black kids throughout their whole life. They get slavery. They get Jim Crow. They get Malcolm X killed. They get Dr. Martin Luther King killed. Then they get George Floyd with the white boy's knee in his neck. Nothing positive. So I said, what we need to do is make this as positive as we can. And how do we do that? We talk about number one, we talk about how these brothers and sisters in the worst time built this. I mean, they built this financial community that was separate and independent. Now you have to, you all, I know you do, I have to say that because you do know. Every governmental institution, the president, the Congress, the Supreme Court, the Army, the Navy, the police force in cities, the state government, were all against us in 1921. They were all against us.
I think you can say that in 2023, but go ahead.
Right, yeah. But not to the extreme it is
Okay.
it was then.
Okay.
I mean, they couldn't get an anti-lynching bill passed.
Right.
That's how bad it was. But they built this community. And men like J.B. Stratford built the Stratford Hotel. He said, we're going to build a hotel in this city for black visitors that match any hotel anywhere. 54 rooms. He had a barber shop, he had a banquet room, he had all that in this hotel. Great hotel. Then you had the John and Lola Williams. They built the Williams Confectionery. It was a confectionery for young people could go and get their sodas and everything and socialize. They say more engagement took place in the Williams Confectionery than anywhere else in the city.
So these are the heroes that you're actually talking about.
Yeah.
Okay.
The Williams, the Dreamland Theater, they built this. 780 seats. So black people wouldn't have to be embarrassed and degraded by going around the back and going up balcony. They could sit anywhere.
So
And it's where Du Bois made his famous speech there in March of 1921.
So
These are the things that we need to teach our kids. But what happens when you say massacre, people bypass all that. They say, let's see the massacre. I saw a piece the other day where they're still digging up, trying to find bodies.
Right.
They said, oh, here's one that he got hit hard on the head, and he got such and such. I said, why are they telling us this stuff? I mean, why do we need to know this? Our kids don't need to hear that. And the whole term massacre, I'll just ask you all this. Have you ever heard massacre of the Alamo?
Nope.
No.
Nope.
Never. And they got massacred. But they don't put it that way. You have the heroes. You have David Crockett and Jim Bowie and the movies they made. And so young white kids could go see that movie and say, whoa, David Crockett was a bad dude. And they come out feeling good. When we wrote the screenplay, we made sure that we wrote it in a way that black kids or black adults will not come out of that theater feeling angry.
Let me ask you a follow-up question
Yes, sir.
from what Caleb first asked you, and about what was the difference? He asked you what was the difference between how your research and the research of others. Your answer is that it was, you approached it from a black standpoint.
Yeah.
But at the same time, if you look at most of the other accounts, who I would probably say the majority have been written by black accounts, they will continue to call it that massacre, no matter who you talk to. And I think that's the difference between what you're talking about and them.
Yeah, but I can't blame the people they interviewed who were, at the time of the interview, they were 100 or 90 years old. That was ingrained in my head. That's why the riot, and not the heroes. I said it took an evolution of my thinking to get there, because everything our kids see is negative. They're get their butts kicked by white folks. And so no wonder our kids are out there killing each other. But what we do, they don't talk. Everybody says it started on May 31st. No, it didn't. The invasion was June 1st. May 31st, those white boys were trying to come across those tracks, and those brothers were picking them up. So what they did, I mean, we're winning that battle. So what the white boys did is they went and got every white citizen in Tulsa to bring their guns to the Frisco Railroad tracks. They had 7,500 to 10,000
Wow.
at the tracks. That wasn't good enough. Then they go get airplanes.
Right.
And they want to get these brothers out of where they're
Right.
shooting. So what they did is the airplanes would fly over, drop these kerosene bombs, and force them out.
Wow.
And I know we're running out of time, so let me just quickly say,
Yeah, go ahead. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll come back to that. We're going to stick a pin in that. We'll come back to that. And I know Dr. Chadwell has a question for you as well. And so we will be right back, folks.